Uh, Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today to um, Life Sciences of Washington and Nature's V. Today, we are with the Executive Director of Life Sciences of Washington, a biotechnology company, also the creator of the supplements that you find in Nature's V, Mr. Victor Muhammad. How are you today, Mr. Muhammad?
I am well by God's grace and mercy. How are you, sir?
I am well by God's grace and mercy also. Um, we wanted to Today you wanted to express the need for people to understand the value of one of the products that they may not have uh, come into knowledge of, and that product is IB-30. We 3 years ago had a conference call with doctors and members of various ministries of health as it relates to IB-30, and you were expressing the benefits that you saw that IB-30 could bring the world as a whole and humanity in its totality. So today we wanted to give you some time so you could go over and express exactly what you need to talk about as it relates to IB-30 and give us a better understanding of why it is one of the supplements that you would recommend.
Thank you. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. We are always waiting for guidance to come to us. We learned many years ago that the people do not belong to us. The people belong to God. And God is the only leader of people. If you or I submit ourselves to learn the principles of guidance and we become disciplined and we permit ourselves to become a vessel through which knowledge can come, then we will appear to be a leader in the presence of the people, though we are not the leader, because there's only one leader, and that leader is God. So I'm always waiting for information to be downloaded, so to speak, or given to me that I may share with the people. Approximately 3 years ago, we developed a new immunosupplement. That product is ImmunoBoost 30. ImmunoBoost 30 was developed because people kept asking me to develop something that they could take every day, even if they did not have an infection. They wanted to take the IB-100, but I recommended that they do not if they did not have some kind of infection or some kind of malady. A registered nurse, I think in North Carolina, petitioned me one day, and she said, why don't you make a product that people can take as a prophylactic, something that people can take to prevent sickness. And so I sat for a while and I decided to make the IB-30. The IB-30 gets its nomenclature or its name from being a 30% concentration of the IB-100, the ImmunoBoost 100. The ImmunoBoost 100 has a 28-year history in being used as a dietary supplement, nutritional supplement, and it is most famous for being announced at the Million Man March on October 16, 1995, where Demetrius X. Haskins announced that he had become seronegative for HIV after being on the IB-100 for 6 months. From there, 3 years ago, we made the IB-30. The IB-30 was made so that a person who wanted to get out in front of cold and flu season or any viral infection could begin taking the IB-100 around the middle of August. And by the time flu season got really in effect, let's say in the Southeast United States, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, then you should have a comparable immune system by that time. If you began taking the IB-30 around August, the middle of August. And so what we wanted to do was, because there has been an upsurge in what is now being called uh, COVID-19, I still cannot speak on COVID-19 because there are many things about it that are uncertain to me and I cannot accept. I understand that you have people who are promoting COVID-19 and people who have been recorded as being infected by it, and even people who are being reported to have died from it. I can't speak on that. And the reason I can't speak on that is because I studied coronavirus 31 years ago at the National Institutes of Health. I worked on some projects with Dr. Fauci's lab, and we didn't find anything near what is being reported today as COVID-19. So what is it? I can't tell you. I don't know. But what I can say is that what I am here to say is that if there is a virus that is the pathology behind COVID-19, if you began taking the IB-30, we believe that the data shows that it will make your immune system comparable, such that an infection, even if your body contracts the virus, that does not guarantee that you will get the disease. What is the difference between getting infected and getting a disease? Most human beings walk around every day with the influenza virus, with the rhinovirus, which causes the common cold. The influenza virus causes flu. We probably have, I mean, I think greater than 90 something percent of humans walk around every day with human herpes virus 6 every day. And so, what is it that you have the virus, but you're not sick? Well, the virus has to begin to replicate itself, reproduce itself, in order for you to become, um, well, let me put it in order. So, the virus can be in you, but be dormant. When your body becomes cold, and your body is cold for a long period of time, your immune system is not operable at its best. And so as a result, a virus that's been latent in your body will begin to duplicate itself because the immune system just isn't comparable. Then within the virus will reach a certain level of different of numbers. And that in scientific terminology, that means that you've become toxic. And what toxic means is that now you have enough copies of that virus where you can say you have a cold, you can say you have the flu, you have smallpox, you have rubella, or whatever the number is of a virus or a bacteria. So we believe that it is responsible for us to come before you and reintroduce remind you of the propensity of the IB-30, and that it is not too late to begin a regimen of a daily dosage of the IB-30, so that at least, let's say in the southeastern United States, you still have about another 30 days of warm weather in Georgia, Florida, and whatnot. And so if you began taking the IB-30 today, we believe that you would still have a comparable immune system by the time you have the first frost in this area, and the temperature begins to drop such that it places stress on your body. But there are some other things that you will also have to do, some precautions that you'll have to take. You have to reduce the amount of meat that you eat. Meat contains microorganisms, and these microorganisms help to stress your immune system. If you're in a bad relationship, people usually laugh when I say that. But if you're in a bad relationship, you have to resolve that. I'm not telling you to get a divorce, but you have to resolve it where you're no longer under stress, because stress is one of the greatest factors that cause the compromise in your immune system. So you have to eat food laden with onions and garlic. Onions and garlic, as far as I know, has the greatest propensity of antibiotics, natural antibiotics, more so than anything, maybe with the exception of the UV rays in sunlight. Microorganisms can't survive under UV light. And so uh, onions and garlic contain sulfur. Sulfur is probably the most powerful natural antibiotic that I know. And that's why onions and garlic have that poignant smell to it. It's the sulfur. And once you eat onions and garlic for about a year, you'll find that you no longer get colds, you no longer get flu. And if you do this on a consistent basis, meaning cook it, don't eat it raw. I know people that eat it raw, and I can't advise that. And I advise you not to do that, because the only thing you're going to do is mess up the chemistry in your stomach. And, you'll be walking around, and when you speak, paint peels off the wall. Uh, you don't want that. So that's what we wanted to say to you today. We wanted to remind you of the IB-30, the Immunoboost 30, and the fact that it is a product that can be taken daily. It won't hurt you, and we believe that it has proven to be efficacious in reducing viral infections in the human being. I can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Many of us, we hear about cold and flu season, and I didn't understand what you just said until you gave me the information of how the cold weather does not allow the immune system to function optimally, and therefore viruses that are already dormant in your body will present themselves. So with the IB-30, will this how does it help the body function to where your immune system um, actually is doing the work that it wouldn't have done in a natural environment because of the cold? I remember I read something about immune modulators. Is that something along the lines of what is taking place in the body?
The amino acids that are in the IB-30, the IB-100, are immune modulators. And what is the mode of action, meaning how this functions in the body, is let's take the HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus. In the human immunodeficiency virus, it gets inside the cell of an organism, of an animal. And you have you have two chromosomes inside the nucleus of the cell. The, the, the virus comes in, this is the chromosome. The virus comes in and attaches itself to this chromosome. So each time this cell divides, the virus makes another copy of itself, or it reproduces itself. In order for this to take place, the virus requires two enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that pretty much do everything inside a biological system. Snake venom is a protein, it's an enzyme. Digestion takes place with enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that do almost every function inside an animal's body. So, in order for the human immunodeficiency virus to duplicate itself, it requires two enzymes. What the active ingredient in these products do, the amino acids in these products, they interfere with the enzyme's ability to duplicate the virus. They prohibit the virus from duplicating itself. And when that copy of the virus dies, then after some time, there are none left, because it's like anything else. If something doesn't reproduce itself, then once it dies, then there are no more. And it's really just that simple. And so the IB-30, the amino acids in it prohibits the viruses that are in the body from being able to duplicate themselves. And then the other thing that they do, they're immunomodulators, which means they send out signals, instructions through cytokinetic activity, cytokinetic communication. Cyto means tissue, kinet means to move. So they send communications through the cells, and they instruct other proteins in the body to come over and help to kill this thing. If generally, there are opportunistic infections in an organism when one thing invades the body. So if you get a viral infection, chances are you're also going to get a bacterial infection. So, so what these proteins do, these amino acids do, they send out signals to other cells like the NK cells, the phagocytes, the eosinophils and whatnot. And they send out a signal saying, hey, the body has been infected. We need you to come and engulf these bacteria. So they come, and you can see them basically swallow bacteria. And when these cells swallow the bacteria, it kills the bacteria. So these things play a multifaceted role inside an animal's body. And we have to remember that human beings are animals.
Thank you for that information. And with that, as you were explaining the process by which these proteins work, they sound completely different than what we would call a normal plant-based supplement. Can you expound on the differences? Because I've talked to you and I understand that we're speaking on a cellular level as opposed to I don't know, I guess I would say a concentration level in the body to help something heal the body. Is there a difference between taking L-arginine and taking your product?
Most of the supplements with which I'm familiar that you can go to your local GNC or Walmart and purchase are plant-based. And that doesn't automatically suggest that they're not effective. I'm not saying that, but they're plant-based. The supplements that we have are not plant-based. They are biological, they are animal-based. And what we do is just take these proteins, these amino acids from an animal source, and we make them in a preparation such that they can be applied to a human. And the only thing that we do with these supplements is make them such that they can be stored and they can be taken. But they are the same. They are the same products that you would find inside a human's body or in any animal's body. So the difference is that these supplements that we market, uh, they just come out of the animal's body. And supplements that you get from GNC or Walmart or wherever, they're plant-based. So that's the major difference.
Thank you. I want to read something that you allowed Nature's V to use as a part of their mission statement, and I think it would give everybody an understanding of two things. Immunotherapy. We're hearing a lot about immunotherapy. 3 years ago, when we decided that we were going to start Nature's V and connect it to LSOW, the biotechnical uh, uh, um, supplement company, the word immunotherapy wasn't being used, but we had saw that they were headed that direction, and they were using different type of recombinant drugs that mimic what the body already does. But you wrote this statement. You said immunotherapy in our hands refers to the use of the body's own immune system to be the guiding principle for the use of exogenous immune agents, proteins, and modulators intended to mimic the body's own immune response when the body has been compromised. I search for different understandings of immunotherapy, but just for our listening audience today, we have a few minutes left. We went a little over. Um, give them the understanding of why this is the base by which you are bringing in the new health paradigm where there will be no pharmaceutical drugs and things of that nature. And don't give us too much because we know that people like to plagiarize what you say, but just enough to give people an understanding of that this is the way that the body is actually healing itself today, proven over the last 28 years.
In the last 6,400 years, a new system came on the earth where we went from using the body and the intelligence that was placed in the body to heal itself to using exogenous forms of healing. And that new form of healing was called medicine. It began in what is now Egypt. When Egypt was under the control of Black people, there was this form of treatment of the human being and animals, but it's not the same as it is today. Natural remedies were used, and they were very effective. When Europeans and Caucasians took over what is now Egypt and changed the name from Kemet to Egypt, they made it more a thing of chemicals and less a thing of using biologicals to treat the human and treat the animals. Veterinary medicine also began in that same area. And when Socrates and Hippocrates and all of the European scholars went to the banks of the Nile to learn these sciences, they sat under our fathers and they learned these sciences and they took them back to Europe and they plagiarized it and made it their own. And they began to use more chemicals to treat the body than they do than they did biologicals. And so what we are now doing, since that 6,000 year cycle of this Western world has come to an end, we are now reintroducing to the human being the same thing that was here 6,000 years ago when the West changed everything and commercialized everything and instituted death. Everything that you find in the Western world causes death. The computer, the iPad on which I'm being interviewed right now, medicine, the food, everything, the television, everything produced by the Western world causes death. So now what we're doing, we're in the beginning stages of changing that back to the way it was prior to 6,000 years ago. So the paradigm that we have now introduced, that's being summarily unfolded right in front of you. It's being done in steps so that we don't overwhelm people with it, but it's also being done in steps so that it can't be stolen. Because the objective here is not for us to become millionaires. And so there are people who have far more resources than we have. And they can listen to something that I say and then take it and produce it overnight, but then commercialize it as it's been done with traffic tickets, police, medicine, law, jurisprudence, healthcare, food. Everything has been commercialized. And so what we're doing now is introducing a new health paradigm. No, excuse me. We have introduced a new health paradigm, and it's being unfolded in front of you. And I don't know if I answered your question.
You did,
Okay.
and you know, and I, you know, we understand why you have to be careful in what you say. So, I think that the next thing that we will cover with the last 2 minutes of the program is just explain what is the mode of operation of each of the products that we currently have at Nature's V that you produce at LSOW.
Okay. The oldest product is the IB-100. It's primarily to treat, well, I shouldn't say treat because it's not a medication, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. It was developed to serve as a product to arrest, to ward off, to help the body fight against viral infections, inflammation. It's even been found to be efficacious in some cancers, arthritis, renal failure, a whole host of things. You really have to go and read up on it on the different websites that are that list some of the results that we've gotten. The IB-30, Immunoboost 30, is a derivation of the 100. It's called 30 because it's 33% the concentration of the IB-100. The IB-19 is similar to the IB-100 in that the propensity that the IB-100 has for attacking viruses, the IB-19 or Immunoboost 19 has shown the same effect in treating and not treating, but in dealing with and combating bacterial infections. So, and the OU7 or the Okoi Uhai 7, Okoi Uhai is Swahili for save lives. It's called the 7 because 7 in Islam represents the seventh chapter of the Quran, which is the elevated places. So any human being that has good health will be in an elevated place. And the Okoi Uhi 7 is a combination of the IB-100 and the IB-19. Because the rationale behind that is, as we said about 20 minutes ago, generally, if you get a bacterial infection, chances are you're going to also have an opportunistic infection that includes a virus or a protozoa, and vice versa. So, in order to have a fighting chance against an opportunistic infection where you have both viruses and bacteria in your body, the Okoi Uhi 7 or the OU7 has demonstrated some efficacy in being able to combat such types of infections. And the last one where is the IB-10, Immunoboost 10. The Immunoboost 10 is an exclusive product that is being marketed by Nature's V. And it is a 10-day supply of the IB-100. Why a 10-day supply? Because in the last 28 years, we found that many people who take the IB-100 only need about a 3 to 7 day supply of it, and they no longer need it. So we developed the IB-10 for that purpose.
Thank you very much for your time today, Mr. Muhammad. We thank all of our listeners for tuning in to LSOW, Nature's V's Autoimmune Disease Foundation YouTube channel. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we go, Mr. Muhammad?
Yes, we will be doing more videos, more interviews in the forthcoming weeks and months. And we're going to be addressing some subject matters that are necessary for the revitalization and the introduction of the world that's being brought in as we speak. God said in the Bible, "Behold, I make all things new." Well, that's not just God just talking. Things, if you look around, things are being made new, and
Yes.
the old is dying. And what we've known of as the Western world is no more. And so the so-called African American is the person who has been given charge of bringing in this new world. But so that's what we're going to be addressing.
Thank you very much for your time today. We thank our viewing audience for your time. Please go look at our other videos on Nature's V's Autoimmune Disease Foundation. You can find information on Mr. Victor Muhammad on Nature's, Natures V.com. We've been blessed with a jewel and a man who understands the human body and has been raised in the house of America, trained by the best, and now has taken on God's direction for the benefit of us and humanity as a whole. We give you the greetings and we thank everybody for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad.
You're welcome.